Welcome everyone. This is once again your host Shailesh bringing you live on NZ World News, positive news that we always try to bring people who have done a lot of community, lot of aspirations that has helped the people across the nation. And today I have the pleasure because the elections are going on everywhere in our nation, and we have got local government which is the root and the root community rooted where we can understand what's going on with our people. And this is all about community. This is all about our people, how we can make their life good, better in our country like New Zealand. So we have the pleasure today to invite and to talk to a person who has spent most of his life, I would say, in the community because the position that he has been holding for last more than 2.5 decades. It's amazing personality, Wayne Guppy from Lower Hutt, that I'm united. Thank you, Wayne, for absolutely a pleasure and a delight to invite you to our show and to get some insights about the local government, how it operates, what's the role, and how it affects the people around your area everywhere that makes a difference. So, welcome,
Thank
Wayne.
you, Shailesh. Welcome. Thank you for that kind introduction.
Yes, so we're going to start with some of the key things that local government. Let's touch on the local government, why it is so important. And when it comes to local government and central government, there's always a battle. There is always an ideology or a difference of opinion. But at the end of the day, they both are here to serve the people of New Zealand. And I wanted to understand from you the role of the local government from you. You've been, I mean, there's no introduction for Mr. Bain, who has been since 1998, correct me if I'm wrong, involved in the council. And then 2001, you became the mayor. And since then, you have never looked back. You are still a mayor. And that's the beauty of me to invite you. And I haven't come across a personality like that who has been working day in and day out and hard. And how many challenges, how many battles you must have fought, different dynamics and challenges that you have faced. So I want to understand the role of the local government and particularly the role of the mayor, that you are the committee chair, you are the chair of many things, and then you have the decision making power and you have the power to interact with the government as well, the central government. So give us some insights about the local government's role and your role, basically.
Sure, Shailesh. The most important thing is for people to understand is that local government has an effect on your life, and
Absolutely.
and 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 it's the role really of the mayor and that local government initially is about getting setting a platform, if you like, about the direction that you want your city to go in.
Mm-hmm.
And to do that, the mayor's got to be able to create a team with the
Mm.
councillors, and you need to be able to if you like, to sell that in conjunction with the councillors, to sell that plan and where you want to go and where you want to head in the city. There's from the point of view of you can have aspirations heading out for, and it's important that you have plans that lead out. Where do we
Yeah,
want to be in 10 years? Where do we want to be in the next 15 years? What are the important decisions that we should be making so
correct.
that we get there? And 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 you also have some immediate issues that
Mm-hmm.
you deal with, and those are day-to-day things that people want decisions made on.
Yes, yes.
More importantly, when you're talking about central government, my philosophy has always been,
Mm.
regardless of who's into power, and
Yes.
regardless of the changes that they make, and regardless of some of the things that they might impose on local government,
Mm.
you've got to work with them.
Mm.
That's
Absolutely.
reality,
Absolutely.
and I see,
Agreed.
I see councillors and sometimes other mayors getting excited about it. Well, the fact of the matter is,
Mm.
whoever's in control at central government, you just
Mm-hmm.
have to work with them,
Mm.
there is always some common ground.
Mm.
and
Absolutely.
and and it's really important that you work through getting, if there's some differences, but in the end, you're going to
Mm.
be knocking on their door at some stage for
Absolutely.
because there are things that you want done in your area, and you
Mm.
need that sort of support.
Mm.
So sitting back and throwing stones is not a helpful way of
Mm.
getting central government to work with you.
Yeah, and I want to touch this on this because, as you said rightly, that it affects the people, it impacts the people, and it is the starting point of the impaction that every citizen, every community person gets affected with the local government. So I want to touch on the basic fundamental needs of every human being on this planet or in this community. The basic thing starts from the local government. So whether it is water, that they need pure water, good water, whether they need all the facilities for the kids, for the family to come together to have a, discussion or anything to play around or everything. It starts from the local government, and which is they are quite responsible in terms of expectations of the communities and the needs that to be fulfilled, whether through the council or whether through the local government intervention or in collaboration with many other organizations. How would you see that point of basic fundamental needs of human being met first and foremost at the ground level, at the community?
Well, I mean, that's a really, it's the most important part, because if you think about, I always think that there are things that local government might not directly do, but are important to people. But as mayor and as council,
Yes.
you interact, you facilitate with, it might be a central government role, but whether it become, and I've always said that in a community, there are three things that people really want to start. One, they want to feel safe.
Absolutely.
Two, access to health, and three, an opportunity for education for their kids. And those are, while central local government might not have direct control over those, but you're working with central government, making sure that your area or your city is catered for. But it's certainly from the point of view of if I talk about the basics, about making sure they get, good clean drinking water, the rubbish, whether it's into recycling or
Absolutely.
those things, in parks, in reserves, in libraries, and maybe swimming pools. They're all things that are important to us all.
Yes.
And what is important for which you can have a bigger influence on local government than you do on central government is that communities have an opportunity to help mould where they want local government to take their town or city. And that's really important, that communities engage in that process, and particularly on the things like, that we talked about with the basic sort of things with, with the waste, the roading, if you like, those sort of things. They're important. And you give that feedback to your council.
Yeah. And I think how important is that, because the basic fundamental needs of a human. And I remember some of the things that you have done or you was involved in the pure drinking water with regard to the Wellington, and you had the challenges and you had the battle that you fought for the people, basically. And that's so important. Coming to after the basic things that we name, this is a very vital question I want to ask you, because in your experience, as you rightly said, that you are the first voice to raise for the people to with the central government. If you are at your level or the council level or the government level, local government level, if you can't, then you still have to work with the central government to make sure that it works for them. And you are the main first hand access for the people, as a mayor. How would you then deal with this? Is a very challenging, because in the recent times when the floods happen, when the crimes happen, when all these things, disruptions happen for the small businesses, and the drink and the sewerage or the storm water due to the floods and everything, that it's a basic fundamental things, and you are the first one to access it and to understand what are the needs that is required. Then you have to deal with certain aspects of it with the central government. How would you, put yourself that when it comes to this type of challenge, that your role is to make sure that it's done hook or crook, whether through your councillors or through government, local, central. How would that challenge you have faced in your 2.5 decades now, almost you have been, and different times, different challenges, different circumstances, but dealing with government, central government, how that challenge you had, and what are the things that you think can be improved to make a smoother transition?
Well, you've got to have a relationship with them for a start. And that's important, and that's, you know, in the good times and the bad times. But you've got to have a relationship, and it's what's also important is in an area. It's, for instance, in the Wellington region, we're talking about Upper Hutt. But generally speaking, if there are issues that arise, it's also probably affecting another city down the road. So it could be Lower Hutt, or it could be, you know, Mayoral or Wellington. But as part of your collective workings together, you need to come together. You need to work together. And that way, then, you know, and working with the community first, identifying what the real issues are, not the you know, the real issues. What are they first? And you can then clearly along with the other mayors in the region and other councils, and then really talk through at central government, saying, you know, because what they want is clarity.
Absolutely, yeah.
They don't want. It's no point going along there, or when you're dealing in certain things. You know, let's say, for instance, if we're dealing with some issues where the community may feel there's been an increase in crime. Well, it's about being specific. It's about being clear on what some of the issues are, and working through with those agencies to say, so these are the concerns of the community. These are the concerns of the locals, and we need to be working through how we can best fix it. Sometimes it might not directly be that agency. Sometimes they might say, well, look, we need to be dealing with, and they will come with you and add strength to the discussion, saying, look, this is probably your issue that you could help these people with. But again, it's about making sure you have a relationship with them. And like I said, Shailesh, before, not much point sitting on the sidelines throwing stones and criticising successive governments when you never know when the next day you're going to have to be there knocking on the door saying, hi, we need some help.
Absolutely. And that is the engagement that you want to see that happening with, not at local, but at all levels, basically. And so very rightly said, Wayne. Coming to my another thing that I would like to know, you have seen since happens the floods. Well, in Auckland, there was floods effect as lot with the housing issues, and lots of people's housing settlement has not yet been done at that level, the way satisfactory level. And then you have to put up with all these challenges. Not sure in Wellington what you have faced. Tell me your experience about this to resolve issues like that, which are core importance to live in a house when there is no house, or to live in a temporary house, and then make sure those challenges are met faster than delaying. In your experience, how do you think that the role of the central government, because it is an issue of the central government as well, because it is not just at the local level that you solve the housing issues caused by the floods, caused by the storm or whatever, but your role is to make sure that smooth transition happens for the people.
And the really important thing about that is that you need to clearly identify who the main players are.
Correct.
That's important, and then it doesn't get lost in the big machinery of government. And I think what my experience has been, that also clearly need to have more than a regular contact with the people you're helping.
Correct.
It's no point saying we're working through it or we're going on, but they need, and people want honesty.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a clear path. And if you're having some problems and it's taking, you need to say that.
Yes.
But that's a really important process, and that communication, so that people know that they're not left sitting or hanging over here and saying, oh yes, they're working through it, because the central government machinery and bureaucracy can be it's difficult for individuals to deal with, and so when you get working together, you can work through that quicker.
But in terms of available resources for the communities to interact, to communicate, to raise the concerns effectively, impactfully, so that it can be resolved rather than delaying in communication itself. Is this a local governments also involved in giving those resources and tools for the communities to interact?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Usually they're the first port of call.
All right.
And so, so central government does have a role. Local government does have a role there, depending on the severity of the crisis you're dealing with and what it is. Obviously, then the other players come involved. There's private sector gets involved, central government gets involved.
Yeah.
But it's important. But coordination is the key, because there's nothing worse than when you're dealing with a crisis that you've got 3 or 4 leaders running the ship, and you've got other people trying to do other things. It's really, really important. Again, it's about getting a team together and making sure that that you're all working in the same direction, not trying to pull them, if you like, in 3 or 4 different. And that happens if you don't get it right at the start. And local government has a role to play in that early on, because, as I said, generally speaking, in a crisis, local government's the first port of call.
Right, right. And in terms of what your experience now after spending so many years of changes, challenges, and then trying to improve with new environment, new circumstances, and keep updating, upgrading, where do you see now your role has evolved from where you were now before and now, and then the challenges ahead of you? In this current year, in 2025, we are talking after we have experienced COVID, after we have experienced floods, after we have experienced a lot of natural disasters or casualties. What do you see now moving forward, that the local government level, you need certain new things to be updated, upgraded, developed, so that you are well in advance about the issues that you can foresee in the
Well,
future?
I think what we're going to see in the next we are going to see in the next couple of years in local government across New Zealand is that there will be some major changes.
Right.
The way, I think what we'll see is that central government is very keen on putting through a lot of reforms, and that's, there's some real good things happening.
Correct.
And you talk about RMA reform, you talk about they're looking at the role and what local government should be doing and shouldn't be doing. Rates capping, they're looking at benchmarking, they're looking at a bigger role for maybe the local government minister. So there's going to be some real changes ahead. And with that, I think the public will start to question, and I think local government leaders need to lead that.
Absolutely.
Saying, okay, so what's the best way of delivering local government services for the next 20 years? Is it the same way of delivering what we do today?
Yes.
Or do we need to change? And I think very quickly, when people see, when the water systems, local water done well, and so that it's taken out of the direct hands of local government, and some of these other reforms that are going to take place, and some of the changes, particularly in the RMA reform, will probably regionalise or centralise some of the decision making. So communities are going to say, okay, what's the best way of delivering local government services for the next 20 years? And you would have to say, doing what we're doing today is not going to deliver what we want in the next 20 or 30 years. So communities across the country are going to have that sort of discussion.
Yeah. So in terms of, on that note, like, do you as a mayor of Wellington Lower Hutt, do you also interact
Upper
with
Hutt.
Upper Hutt, sorry, Upper
Yeah.
Hutt, sorry, pardon me, Upper Hutt. What do you also interact with other mayors of the country, different parts of
Absolutely. Yep. And
understand the overall nation's directions, or overall understand the nation's, integrity of keeping certain things traditionally, heritagely intact? That do you deal with other mayors as well, or talk to them?
Yeah, absolutely. And particularly if there's a lot of opportunities where mayors get together and we talk. I mean, let's say in the Wellington region, we have contact the mayors in the region, the Wairarapa and Hutt Valley and Wellington and Pairua and Kapiti, where we get contact all the time. And particularly if one of the things that you'll find with mayors across the country, if some particular area, region or city is having a particular issue, you generally find, and no one should be too proud not to do that, and I know mayors do. If you think someone's you're having a particular issue, and you suddenly can ring one of the other mayors, because you know that they've had the same problem.
Yes,
They've
correct.
had the same issue, and you're very good to just to have a discussion with them to say, well, what did you do about it, or
Yeah.
we're thinking about doing this, and okay, well, don't go there. We did that and it didn't work, or so
Mm.
that for mayors across the country, the phone lines for them interacting and talking is always open.
Absolutely. So on that note, the recent development I saw in the news that the earthquake zones has been now going to be changed or identified, and they're going to go less and less remedial funding that was there can reduce the savings or reduce the funding for certain zones declared area has been now changed. What's how much mayor's role or how much local government's role in that when decisions like this are taken? Zoning of school zoning, for instance, or like zoning of like declaring that this is earthquake zone or this is volcano zone now. What is the local government has got anything say in?
Well, local government's got to make, all councils have got to make those right decisions about where developments
Mm.
take place, and
Yes.
and and
Uh-huh.
that's that if you like, that decision making in the planning process is very, very important, and it's more important today than it
Hmm.
was. I mean, when you talk about
Correct.
where and how, because we've got to be resilient these days. I mean, particularly with climate
Absolutely.
change and areas. I mean, from the
Mm.
point of view of where developments are and should and shouldn't take place, that's
Mm.
important. It's
Mm.
and going back to what you said a minute ago about the earthquake prone buildings,
Mm.
etc., the
Mm.
change there,
Mm.
that's a game changer across the country.
Mm.
And because it didn't matter what city, town, or
Exactly.
provincial or metro you're in across the country, everyone had what we had, stickered buildings that were
Correct.
earthquake prone, and it was having a big impact for
Mm.
economically across, because if you're trying to fix a building in Upper Hutt or downtown Wellington, the cost is the same, but the
Mm.
return's not as great. And
Mm.
so the country was going to have a lot of unoccupied, derelict buildings over the next 20,
Correct.
30 years. And
Mm.
the sensible thing the government's done,
Mm.
people are still going to be safe, but
Mm.
there are now a whole lot of buildings at stage were going to stay derelict and decay are now
Mm.
going to be, some bit of work done on them, and they'll be tenanted, and it will have a big impact across the country
Mm.
economically.
Absolutely. And this is where the economical decisions that help the communities, that help the nation, that help the regions. So your Upper Hutt region, it helps economically. And then there are certain things as a mayor, you create certain opportunities. You try to put certain things so that you create economic wealth for the region, for the zone, and then overall it helps the overall city, basically.
Yep.
From that point of view, I wanted to ask you this as an economic growth and as a finance person myself. Like, do you think we do lack in creating more opportunities when it comes to service is fine and communities is fine. But when it comes to increasing wealth, when it comes to creating opportunities for increasing wealth or projects that could create wealth for the city, for the region, do you think there is more needs to be done? And I remember you are also one of the chair heading the rugby club, if I'm not wrong, in Wellington, and you have been handling that sporting area as well. And these are the opportunities where you can create economic growth and economic wealth as well, creatives and then
What, well,
sports.
what, and if you look at our city, we've had a lot of investment. What's really important is you've got to actually create an environment, because the
Correct.
wealth comes from the private sector.
Right.
The
Correct.
wealth, the
Absolutely.
wealth, and you need
Mm.
the private sector to have confidence. You
Absolutely.
need the private sector to want to invest
Mm.
in an area, and there are ways that you can do that.
Hmm.
But more importantly, what my experience with private sector investing is, they want consistency
Yes.
and they
Correct.
want fair and
Commitment.
concise decision making,
Mm. Mm.
so that the rules don't change on them.
Yeah.
And once you start that and you get the private sector interested, the private sector is no different to anyone else. Once there's a roll on, and once
Hmm.
they see something's happening in an area,
Mm.
they want to be part of the action,
Correct.
and that's important. But the most important thing is they want the private sector. My experience has been, and you can give some incentives to them. There's no question about that, and that's
Mm.
important. But they look for consistency. They
Mm.
look for no surprises. and clarity, and
Absolutely.
then the private sector. But local government can hinder that, but they are also an important part of actually really wanting to make it work. And if you don't have consistency and you have councils making odd decisions, councils changing the rules, then you're not going to have the private sector being very interested in your city or your area.
Yeah. And just on that private sector, I want to touch another question is like, unutilization of resources that the council has or the local government has access to. For instance, the facilities, the venues, the lots of, say, from the film point of view, for the studios that are there already in your region and in every region. But utilization to the optimum level is what we have to work on all the time so that we create more and more opportunities and more wealth for our region. Where do you think that needs to be done more in unutilization of resources that local government has got access to? Do you think that there is needs to be a strategy or there needs to be more better interaction and strategies through the central government and the local government, or is it already sits with only local government, that kind?
No, it's a partnership again. It's
Okay.
yeah,
Right.
absolute, and particularly with central government, sometimes they
Mm,
can open the doors, central government, but it's certainly working with them and actually making sure that they're aware of
mm.
some of the issues,
Correct.
and,
Correct.
and from not just at a high strategic level, but
Mm,
down at the ground at the ground level. So yeah, very important. Yeah,
mm.
it's a well, local government has a role there, but it's really important to be working with the sector and central government.
Right, right, right. Oh, that clears a lot of things that so in your now going forward, moving forward, that what you see, if you are elected back into this role and which you know what you are doing already, you have to do a lot of things and a lot of things have changed in dynamically, geographically or climatically. How climatic conditions are a key role since what we have seen in the last few years has disrupted. So to combat climatic environment and the climatic changes that happens and which affects the businesses, small businesses, individuals, families, what are the measures, what are the things that you are going to take that in your view will really make some difference in terms of uh, handling these climatic changes
Well,
proactively?
I mean, first and foremost, councils across the country have got to make sure that they are making sure that developments are taking place in the right places.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you're protecting coastal, whether it's coastal or whether it's a place like Upper Hutt, who's landlocked, if you like. We're the only city in the Wellington region that doesn't have a coastline, but
Mm-hmm.
with increased rainfall, like you've experienced in Auckland,
Yes, correct.
increased rainfall, so it's an investment in infrastructure.
Correct.
It's an investment in making sure. So you need to have around the table over the next few years, strong leadership and determined leadership to
Mm,
make sure that some of the nice to have things, the
mm,
money's not wasted on those. Actually, in today's environment, people want infrastructure spend and back to basics, and that helps negate some of the issues that arise from
correct.
from because some of the poor planning decisions
Mm,
have already been made, and so we're going to have to mitigate some of those. If
right.
someone, because we know that
Mm,
we're going to have an increase in rainfall, so there's potential for flooding, and those
correct.
are the sort of things that in the foreseeable future that we need to be investing in.
Mm. And how advocating are you in terms of like the housing, particularly affordability is one of the key, but then also related to that, I want to ask you the question is when it comes to housing, it comes the rates of the housing. And then that becomes a big issue, particularly in Auckland, but in Wellington also there will be other dynamics attached to it. So housing wise, like, safe house, as you said, the first thing is safer communities. So house also needs to be safer and properly, environmentally like aligned to, because to handle the climatic changes. Do you think that the greenhouses or houses that can sustain or become resilient in this environment of climate change, do you think the builders or the directions to the builders or to the policies around housing is going to change, should be changed after these climatics that we saw?
I don't think there's any question, Shailesh, that will change, and I think the building industry and etc. are smart, and they will see, because the communities will start to demand that.
Exactly.
The
Yeah.
communities will start to say, well, I want to buy, I'll have that house, but I want, if it hasn't got this or it hasn't got that, then, and so there are ways that, one, local councils can insist that things happen. And secondly, I think you'll find in the private sector, particularly, they will move to where the community wants and what they want in their in homes. And so, yeah, there will be change. There's no question about that. And we've seen that. We've seen that over the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, the type of housing that people want today is different to the type of house that you and I might have wanted 20 or 30 years ago.
Absolutely.
And but the sectors develop and they evolve as the communities want. But certainly the first point is that there are things that councils can do to insist that, in future developments, these are the sort of things that need to take place.
And with the recent announcements also with regard to the housing that, or the builders particularly, that to increase the process of resource consents for building houses, the builders were, there is a talk going on that builders can be given the power and the owners can be given the power to talk to each other and get that sorted rather than council intervening in terms of fast processing and in terms of getting things. But then there are other side of the coin is people have a fear that if something goes wrong with the builder, then the insurance company and the builder and the owner has to deal with it rather than council. How do you see this kind of development, if at all it happens, that ownership goes to the owner, go to the builder, and not less intervention of the council?
Anything that increases the speed of building a new house has got to be good. Has to be good. But you're right, the fine print is in where's the liability if something does go wrong. The liability issue. And that's an issue for everyone. And that's the fine print that needs to get sorted. But certainly from the point of view, you'd have no argument from me that if there's less council involvement and houses get built quicker, that's got to be a good thing for everyone. Because after all, what we want is for, our children and grandchildren to be able to have an affordable house in a nice suburb. So yeah, that's got to be good.
But in your experience, since you have been in this role and as a mayor and also like spending more than 2 decades, do you think that councils, instead of giving the rights and the power to the builder and to the owner, who is then at the mercy of each other, and there is no middleman, which used to be the council before, do you think that the council also can play a role if given to, again, fast process, if there is any litigation, if there is any mitigation required? Or do you think just like council should be just out of it? It's what the
there's probably a halfway point.
Yeah.
And that's what needs to be worked through. Yeah, there's probably what you call a point where it works for everyone.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm sure the minister's working towards, because that's the issue. But it's certainly, if this change towards less council involvement, we'll certainly see more homes being built, I'm sure.
Yeah, so that's great. Now I wanted to ask you from the election point of view, Wayne, since you are getting into the 2025 election to this local government election and you are standing for the same role, what do you think will be your first 3 priorities that when you are elected, or what's your priority for this term?
Well, the first thing is obviously what we've talked about before is once you get the new council is making sure that you form a team. The All Blacks don't win because one player is outstanding. You need to have everyone involved.
True.
and create that team. Secondly, the most important thing is to do is actually then to set out clearly that our goal immediately is the I call it back to basics and infrastructure spend. That's what people expect. And the third thing would be actually sitting down and saying, with the changes that are taking place, I know there will be a discussion nationwide about how local government delivers its services, but at a local level, taking down and saying, with the cost of rates and some of the projections across the country, what are we going to do in Upper Hutt differently to make sure that we contain costs?
Right. Absolutely.
And that's a blank sheet of paper. Let's start from scratch and say, listen, how we deliver services today cannot be the same tomorrow because the costs are going to continue to rise. So it's an important process, and that's going to be a tough decision for some of the councils, but it's has to happen. And so there'll be some major changes in what we're doing, and it may be that some of the things that local government's been doing today might not happen tomorrow. Absolutely. And you go back to the people and say, well, we're not going to do this, but it's going to save this sort of money, and let them know and talk to them so there's no surprises.
So what in terms of when it comes to the basic cost of living crisis that we are facing across the whole nation? Now in Auckland, we are facing more pinch. That's what everybody says. Mine area is much cost living crisis than yours. But in the end, everywhere there is a cost of living crisis. In terms of that, when you compare that, and then you want to rate increase to do certain projects, to do certain things, again, for the betterment of the community. And now this is a challenge where as a mayor, as a councillor, or as a Wellington Council, that you would like to see that how do you, balance these challenges for the people's lives?
Well, you've got to have the ability to say no. There are some things that, you look and say, you're going to say, sorry, we will not be doing that in the next 2 or 3 years.
Right.
Because the rate increases are not sustainable. And so when you start at that point, then you've got to go through and say, well, actually, I know that we want the answer to that is no. And that's when we're talking about, strong decision making and not be swayed, because what will happen the moment you say you're not going to do something, you're going to get a few noisy people, and that sometimes can then has an effect on how councillors vote. But you need to be saying no, because that costings are unsustainable, and we're going to not do this, and not do that.
Right. And that's the beauty of what's not many people have got this leadership acumen, or when it comes to taking decisions. Like we saw, people started blaming or pointing fingers when our Auckland mayor did not take the decisions as fast when the floods came, or when the warning signs were supposed to be given faster. And they were too in the minds whether to do now or later, or now or later. And in that process, we did lose certain things and certain elements in it. But again, this is what we call the decision-making process of a leader, and how to show your leadership when it's needed. So calling spade a spade, calling right or right, wrong or wrong. And that's very key. And I guess from your experience, you have dealt with these kind of things. And now moving forward, the challenges are going to be a bit different, and yet it is what you have to do. So tell me something about all my listeners and who are listening here at the moment. Like, what is the role of a mayor's major that could make, as you rightly said at the start when we started, that you are the first point of contact for the communities to make an impact. What would listeners like to hear from a mayor that could make everyone's life a little better, if not fully better, but certain things they can have a full change of betterment, and certain things they may not have a slow progress of betterment? What would you say?
Well, I think people in every community across the country would want to see the fact that the rate rises are levelled
Mm.
out.
Absolutely.
And so that's a matter of making sure that that individuals make those right decisions for the community. I mean, that's paramount for people at this immediate time. Things have risen and costs, etc. And so, making sure that money at council is no different to what we've got money to spend at home, and spend it on what's needed. And when we don't need it, or we think we can do without it for a while, same decision, don't do it.
Yeah.
And that's what communities are looking for.
Right, right. So, any new changes that you're ambitious after spending so many years that you would like to see on your point of view rather than government's point of view or community point of view? Yes, everything that you do is for the community with their referencing, with their referendum and all that we talk about. But as you as mayor, as you as experienced mayor, what is your one thing that you would like to do?
Well, I
In
think from the point of view of, I'm talking now of the Wellington region,
yes, yes,
and
Wellington.
we're part of Upper Hutt's part of the jigsaw of the Wellington region.
Mm-hmm.
What's really important?
Mm-hmm.
What's really important is the Wellington region is unified,
Right. Mm-hmm.
because then we all win.
Absolutely.
And we can't have Upper Hutt or Lower Hutt or Pairua or Kapiti being a kingdom on their own. We need the city
Mm-hmm.
and the region working together,
Absolutely.
and that will bring prosperity to the region,
Mm-hmm.
and very quickly a much stronger engagement with central government when the region's working together and not working in 7 or 8 different units. So that's an important process, I think, for just not important for me as Mayor of Upper Hutt, but important for the region,
For the
the
region,
newly
yeah.
elected mayors, that we are very, very unified and work together.
Absolutely. I think that is all what we need everywhere across the whole nation, that to work together with each other, irrespective which region, which area that you belong to. There are certain commonality goals that a human wants to aspire, and common goals are everywhere. But as a human, there are certain common goals that they would like to see in their life. So, as you rightly said, that rate increase, whether it is in Auckland or Wellington or Christchurch, anywhere, rate increase people don't like every time to happen. So, if there was an alternative method, then we all should work together to what's the alternative method of giving some time, for the growth, for the economy, for create wealth, rather than just saying that, okay, status quo, standardization, or traditionally we just increase the rate and we get the money. Is that the only answer, or we should look beyond that?
Oh, couldn't agree more, and that's important. And the fact that as a region, what regions around the country, it's much you've got a much a stronger voice when you're dealing with other entities, and whether it be central government or someone else, when there's a collective group working and saying we all believe this is the right thing to do, or this is what's important for the region. So yeah, that working together is just. And look, to be fair, we're a nation that 5.5 million people, that just is needs to be coordinated and working together to make things happen.
Absolutely. That is the end that we can note on that, is working together is what you have been saying, Wayne. 20, how many, 29 to 25, 26, 27 years, and you are in that role. I mean, half of your life, no, I would say full of your life you have given to the community. So that's a brilliant kind of a journey that anybody can have. Serving the company is the most pleasing factor for you, I guess. And for many people who are listening, I think, what's your urge to all the people who are listening, that, what you do as a role, and what everybody that you would like to see during this election, that people should come also, not just for voting, but also participate when it comes to participation in this kind of environment, in this kind of, people talk about political and then they talk about local government, central government. But really speaking, when in your experience, tell the listeners, It's central, local, or political, doesn't matter. It is still serving the people. And you need to be a part of that. Every single citizen needs to be a part of it. In that regard, what's your urge to all the listeners?
Yeah, well, make sure you get to know your mayor or your councillors, and talk to them, and
Mm,
and have an input. That's important. And the other thing that I do urge, that do it with respect, because you're
mm.
not always going to agree with one another,
True,
but
absolutely.
but we all, but it's when and we're not going to, everyone's not going to say yes all the time, but we
Mm,
do that with, you say, I this is why we're doing it, and you clearly, someone can say, oh, but I disagree, but I understand. But
mm,
you do it with some respect, but you can have differences, and if you think things aren't going the way you want them, then you get built, like I said, you have a relationship with central government, have a relationship with your local council. Really
mm.
important.
Absolutely, absolutely. So finally, I wanted to ask you, what is the one thing that you're proud of in this role that you have done so far in this 27 years? What's the one thing that stands out for you that
Well, I think if I look, and people tell me this, I think if you look at what our city was like when I first
Mm,
started, there's
correct?
been major change
Right.
for the good,
Absolutely.
and
Mm.
and we've continued to be if you like, a city for families.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that's been really important for me to see is
Mm.
that we've a city that's quite diverse to what it used to be,
Right. Right.
changing, and a
Mm.
whole, New Zealanders, different cultures, different
Mm.
backgrounds,
Mm.
and they're all part of our city. And I always say, everyone's got to be able to stand up and say that,
Mm.
I just don't live here. This is my home,
Oh, beautiful.
and that's really important. And
Very important, very important. Very well said, Wayne. So your final pitch, I want to give you this final to for your elections. Well wishes for your elections that are coming forward, and I wish you all the best to win and come back and give me more updates on what's really going to happen. But with this note, I want you to say something to our listeners for this election as your pitch of voting, as your right to vote, and is your way of telling people why do they vote you or why they should be involved with you.
well, more importantly, what I'd be saying is that we are in this country fortunate that we can all have our say and have our
Mm,
vote, and
mm,
that's really important. That's something that's important to us all in a democracy. And
mm.
all I'm saying to people is, go and cast your vote,
Absolutely.
because there are lots of people and lots of nations around the world that don't have, unfortunate, and do not have that ability to decide who's going to lead. So what's important for us all is we all go
Mm,
and have our say. And like across the country, you've got till Tuesday if you're going to post it back in the free
mm,
free delivery. If not, you've got till the 11th, Saturday the 11th, midday,
mm,
to drop it
mm,
into one of the, all the towns and cities will have orange collection boxes around, back into your own city
mm.
council. So that's the important thing. I stand by my record, but everyone get out there and vote.
And also tell us something about to all the listeners who may be eligible for voting or they don't know whether they are eligible for voting or not. How do they?
They just call into their local council,
Mm-hmm.
and up until next Friday, and they will, well, most people will be eligible for a special vote. But call into your local council, and they will have someone there that will be able to look at the electoral roll, will be able to look and tell you whether you're enrolled, and if not, they will enrol you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Wayne. And to all the listeners, as you heard from Wayne, who has been in this role for many years, as if like his life has been given to this, and he means business and he means what he means. So, but importantly, most, as he rightly said, we are lucky enough in this country to vote and to have exercise our democracy so freely. So please make sure that you exercise your vote rightly and promptly and not delay, because you are the most luckiest person on this planet in this country that you have this right to access to vote and to democratically say yes or no. So once again, Wayne, with that note, engagement, coming together, all your words, wise words that we heard today is amazing to bring you back, will be amazing to bring you back into our interview conversation to get more and more updates of Wellington and the region that you want to work and you want to see that collectively work together is absolutely paramount for every single city in New Zealand. So thanks once again, Wayne,
Thank you
for
very much.
for
Have a
this
good
beautiful
weekend, everyone.
conversation.
Thank
You
you.
too. Yeah.